I have $40,985 worth of student loans from getting my very fancy mechanical engineering degree. Now, I went to the best finance books I could find, like I Will Teach You to Be Rich, Generation Earn, Broke Millennial, and Financial Freedom to figure out the best strategies to pay off my student loans, and they all came down to 5 common overlapping tips. The first tip is to understand your student loans. Now that means to look into them, understand what your principal is, understand the interest rate you are accruing, and then what interest looks like for that loan. Now, my loans are on Nelnet. Okay, they were originally Great Lake and then they got bought out by Nelnet. So just be aware that there are going to be a lot of changes with student loans now that they're back up and running. So if your loans got moved to a different provider, you need to go through their system and log in and all that. So in my loans, I can see exactly each one. Now they are labeled by groups, essentially, in mine. Now you might have a different loan provider like Mohela, which is my brother's student loans are through, or Navient. There are a couple other providers that also do student loans. But for Nelnet, I have groups. And then when you read this, it looks a little aggressive, right? Because no one wants to read this. It's like a financial statement. Basically, this is saying it was a direct subsidized loan. Does not matter. Not even a thought in your mind. Status, repayment, great, cool. We're repaying these. Payment information. This is where the bread and butter is, okay? Principal balance. That is what you want to look at because then we can calculate that in an Excel spreadsheet, which I will show you, and I'll include it somewhere in the video description so you guys can download it as well and use it to calculate your student loan interest. But you basically only care about this principal balance, which is how much you need to pay back on your student loan, and that is what the interest rate is being applied to. So the principal balance is very important because it will help tell you how much money you need to pay back, and then with the interest of the 4.04%. So these are the two things that you should be focused on, principal balance and interest rate, and you can use that to calculate. It also tells you your accrued interest here, but this fluctuates. So I'm starting to think that this might be even like accrued interest so far this month, and it might go up and up. But I haven't been paying enough attention about it because I just track my interest in a spreadsheet, so I don't really care about this accrued interest. But the point is, you are having to pay interest on top of your principal now because I've accrued some interest. But it was paused for a little bit, so that's good. Now, what I like to do is I like to pull these loans, right, A, B, off here and put them into an Excel spreadsheet, which I will show you later. But the important point is that you should go through this and look, okay, I have a $6,000 loan, I have a $3,000 loan, and put them on a spreadsheet and really understand what your percentages are. They shouldn't really be much higher than 5% because you are doing a student loan service unless you have private loans. That is completely different. Those will not have been paused for the last couple of years. The second tip that I kept seeing in these books is to set up an automatic payment for your student loan. So at least you're hitting the minimum and you're not getting a fee. That is the best thing you could do because now you're just paying interest. You're not paying fees for missing payments and stuff like that. Every provider should have this option. In Nelnet, you can go to payments and then press manage automatic payments, and you'll see here I have a regular monthly amount. I just do the minimum, right? And then it says total auto deducted, and then it just pulls straight out of my checking account once a month. I don't have to worry about it. I never will pay a fee because of this. So don't give them any more money than they deserve. So this is setting up automatic payment. At least you won't be paying fees. So this is what I recommend and what all the books were recommending when it comes to paying back your student loans. At least don't pay the fees. Now, the third tip was interesting because it talked a lot about deciding your priorities. So when it comes to paying back student loans, this should be relatively low on your list because the percentages are so low. So if you have high credit card debt, you for sure 100% should be putting your money towards those credit cards because those are more like 20%, not 3 to 4%. So think about the priorities of how you want to repay back your debt. Another tip I got from a book was a book called Die with Zero. Now, he was kind of changing my mindset, thinking about opportunity costs. So if you have $2,000, right, you could either put that towards a student loan, great, or think about it like this. you are young, relatively fit, you could go take that $2,000 and go take a skiing trip while you can do it now, because you won't be able to take that $2,000 fancy skiing trip when you're in your 60s, right? Because you got knee problems physically, you don't know where you'll be at. So that was kind of another argument that I kept hearing, is like, what is the opportunity cost of spending all, eating out of beans and, being super stingy with your money and then paying off your student loans, but you had no fun in your 20s when you're at your healthiest and your fittest and you have all your single friends who haven't gone off and gotten married and had kids and disappeared from your lives. So that was the kind of thing that I was thinking like, oh, that's actually a solid point for us people who are very stingy with money and can kind of go a little too far by paying more than the minimum amount. So just think about that before you start throwing money at debt just for the sake of being debt-free. Do you really want to be debt-free, or do you want to enjoy your life a little? Just think about it. I'm not arguing either side. It's just something to consider. The fourth tip is figuring out which way you would like to repay if you are going to go above the minimum. So you can either go one of two ways. You can do the high interest way and picking something or picking the loans and knocking those out that have very high interest. Or you can go and do the snowball effect, which is where you pick loans that are super small. So that way you can kind of feel this snowball like, oh, I'm starting to pay off, because you just paid off 6 loans, even though they were really tiny. So those are kind of the two options you're choosing from. So I mentioned that I put all my student loans in a spreadsheet, okay? I know, okay? Some people hate doing math, hate doing spreadsheets, but honestly, I love it. There's nothing more fun than doing this. This was like a Saturday morning, loved it. Literally, I must have an addiction to money, but I also am kind of in like engineering finance, so it makes sense. Essentially, I put out my principal amount. That's exactly the name that it has on your loans, right? Then your interest rate. I actually made 5 separate, if I unhide these, I made 5 separate columns because I wanted to use a fancy formula, and it's just the same. I just literally moved them. So I'm just gonna hide these, but essentially you just make all 5 columns, how many years you want, column wise. So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna say this fancy formula, which is FV schedule, parentheses. You're gonna put your principal amount in one cell and then comma, and then drag your columns across. So all your interest rates. So I'll show you if I unhide this again and I click this, it basically is doing FV schedule, this guy, comma, drag across. Very easy. I will somehow put a spreadsheet below for you guys to play around with, or you can recreate this one. But it's just easier for me to see if I hide these, because otherwise it's a little overwhelming. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, what's the new amount in 5 years? So this $1,912 loan will turn into $2,417 in 5 years, essentially. If you take your new amount minus your principal amount, you'll get $505. Great, cool. This is the interest that you have now paid on that loan, right? Now this principal amount doesn't include the interest that I've already accrued, blah, 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 but it's not gonna make a difference because my interest is so low right now. So math nerds out here who are trying to come after me, no. I know that, it's just to get me a general idea of what my loans are doing, right? So here's your principal amount, here's your interest rates. Theoretically, all things considered, this is how much you will pay on, $40,000 loan. What is that? $41,000 basically will turn into $49,000 in 5 years, essentially. And you'll be paying $8,000 out of pocket in addition to the $40,000 that you already owe, which is crazy. So you were trying to get this 5-year interest rate as low as possible. So what I like to do is I just like to see, okay, what is my highest interest rates, right? Or my highest interest of the loans. Filter, bam, these are the loans I should take out first. Sometimes I do it every time I throw in some money. I'll redo this and filter again. But essentially, you're looking at this and you're thinking, okay, these are loans I should focus on, mathematically speaking. That has the highest interest. So if I had $1,000 right now, I would put it towards one of these 3 loans. Specifically, I'd go after this one because it's got the highest, right? And you can see that if I change this to 5,000, you'll see it go down significantly. So that is kind of what we're looking for, is what can I throw at? Now the snowball method, so that's the interest rate method. That's like you're trying to think mathematically what is the best approach if I had $1,000 to throw in. Snowball effect is picking the smallest ones, right? Because you could pick off this one, you could pick off this one, these two, right, with the $1,000, and you could pick off maybe another one right here. So I could pick off 3 loans right now and just eradicate them, right? Erase. Even though they don't hold that much interest, because you can see it's only a couple $100 of interest down the line. That's an option because it makes you feel good. So mentally, I want to choose that one, but mathematically, I'd want to choose the loan, the one where you pick the highest interest down the road. And it changes, right? As you pay off certain loans, maybe another loan actually has more interest in the long run. So it's kind of fun to play with, but sometimes just don't overthink it. Like, I'm just going to throw $1,000 at the highest loan because that mathematically says, hey, that has the highest interest. So bam, done. Decision made. Or just knock out a couple loans. It's really up to you. Now, the last tip is really just paying above the minimum. There's really no magic pill here. You have to pay above the minimum if you want to pay off your loans. That reduces interest. So it's really the only option. You kind of just have to find the money, prioritize life. So if you have extra money, then you can go and make a payment on top of your reoccurring payments. So how you do that? Make a payment. Great. We have a payment set up on 11/26. Great. Other amount. So let's say I want to do $1,000. Let's say I have that. And then I don't want to pay by account. I actually want to pay by group. So you know how I was saying if you throw $1,000 towards one of the loans specifically, you could save longer in the run? This will auto distribute it. I don't know how it's going to do it. I don't trust this thing. It probably wants to make more money off me than me, right? So if I do pay by group, click this, I can do other amount, $0, and figure out what was that one that I wanted to do. It was the $6,000 rate. So this one's the $3,000. I don't want to pay anything there. This, I'm going to pay my $1,000 there. Do not advance my due date more than a month, even though I'm paying. Yes, do you want to check that? Because this is saying, hey, I'm paying more than the minimum. Don't count that towards the payment I have scheduled towards the end of the month. So do not advance my due date more than 1 month. Then I have other amount, 0, right? Other amount, 0, other amount, 0. And you just have to go through all of these, which is kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie. But, you know, this is how you save money, is time. Time is money. Go through the rest of these. Okay, once you fill out all those zeros, my gosh, I did not realize I had that many loans. Payment date, total payment, $1,000. Continue, and then you fill out your checking information or savings. I usually pull off my checking. I put in my routing account number, review and submit, and continue. So that is how you would go about selecting a payment, is you kind of have to futz with the options, because I don't really trust when I pay extra money, I don't expect them to put it towards the ones that I would probably prefer. It probably would evenly spread it out, which I don't want that, right? I want to just attack one loan at a time. So that's how you do it if you would like to focus on one specific loan at a time. Now, if you're interested in seeing how I have my investments set up, now that you've seen that I have my student loans kind of squared away, automatic payment, all that, I do have a lot of investments going on, like 401k, Roth IRA, how I set all that up, Capital One savings account. I will link some videos up here. I just filmed one on how I do my investments as a 27-year-old. So it's a little more realistic for people in their 20s who don't have like a ton of money and they're not like buying massive amounts of stock. So feel free to check that out. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.